morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Closer Look, the show dedicated to bringing you the facts. We ask the questions no one else will, and we get the answers that no one else can. I'm Arabina Apia. Thanks so much for joining us. Today, we are diving headfirst into the chaotic world of consumerism. Because let's face it, navigating the capitalist marketplace as a consumer nowadays can be more difficult than trying to tiptoe your way through a minefield. If you're like me, then not only are you trying to get the most bang for your hard-earned buck, but you also don't want to get swayed. Got it? In this complex landscape, consumers face numerous challenges, from deceptive advertising to unsafe products, from predatory lending to privacy breaches. The list just goes on and on, making the need for robust consumer protection strategies an important aspect of the way we do business across the country. But what does that look like exactly? Well, across the world, consumer protection organizations and advocacy groups play a vital role in raising awareness, providing education, and mobilizing resources to protect consumers like you and me. They serve as a voice for the voiceless, challenging businesses and institutions to prioritize ethical practices and responsible behavior. Now, in a fast-paced and digitally interconnected world where commerce is not just confined to brick-and-mortar spaces, wouldn't it be great if there were a group of people or a body or an entity, if you will, whose sole purpose was to help you navigate that minefield? One whose mandate was to act as a guardian of fairness, ensuring that consumers are treated with respect, honesty, and integrity. Well, the good news is that entity does in fact exist. Established by the Consumer Protection Act of 2006, the CPC's mandate is clear: to protect the rights of all consumers and ensure fair and transparent marketplace activity. Under the umbrella of the Consumer Protection Act, the CPC serves as a guardian, defending consumers and resolving disputes when their rights have been infringed upon. The Consumer Protection Act of 2006 also provides the legal framework for the CPC's operations. It empowers consumers with rights, establishes standards for business conduct, and grants the CPC the authority to enforce compliance with consumer protection regulations. But consumer protection is not just about the legislation and regulations. It's about ensuring that individuals, regardless of their background or economic status, the CPC is the voice for all consumers, working to level the playing field and bridge the gap between consumers and providers. From today onward, residents here in the capital will have a single access point to have their concerns addressed. This building, located on Tonique Williams-Darling Highway, will house both the CPC and the Department of Consumer Affairs, making it a one-stop shop of sorts. And as per usual, ACL is here to ask the questions and get the answers. So stay tuned. Our conversations on consumer affairs and protection begins right after this.
One minute out, guys. 1 minute out. In 3, 2.
Hello, everyone. Be sure to tune in right here every Monday night at 8 p.m. for another episode of A Closer Look, the show dedicated to bringing you the facts. I'm Arabina Apia, your host for this season, and I'll see you right here every Monday night at 8 p.m. on cable channel 212. Welcome back. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Arabina Apia. Thanks so much for tuning in. Tonight, ACL comes to you live from the commissioning of a new space to house the Consumer Protection Commission and the Consumer Affairs Department. And we're delving into a critical aspect of consumer advocacy, and that is understanding the critical differences between those two bodies. While both organizations play vital roles in safeguarding consumer rights, they have distinct functions and areas of focus. Consumer protection is a vital aspect of any well-functioning society, one aimed at safeguarding the rights and interests of average, everyday Bahamians.
It has to do with justice, and when you really filter it down. But everybody, as I said, is grappling with the high cost of living, particularly when we talk about what we proverbially call the small man who is working very hard. They go and they spend their money at establishments if they feel aggrieved that they didn't get value for money, or they've got a defective product. They need to know that there's somewhere that they can go if they can't get satisfaction from the business.
Right.
There's somewhere they can go at a government level to get satisfaction. And so that is what this is all about. People, they work hard for their money. You want to make sure that they feel that they have some avenue of protection.
In this regard, two key entities play crucial roles in ensuring consumer welfare: the Consumer Protection Commission and the Consumer Affairs Unit. While they share the common goal of protecting consumers, these organizations differ in their specific functions, areas of focus, and approaches. We caught up with Levade Darling, Operations and Education Manager at the CPC, to explain those nuances.
Consumer affairs deal with prices, enforcing the breadbasket items, prices relating to them. There are mandated prices and markups. CPC deals with complaints against a service provider in terms of shorty goods or a good sold by a merchant that is defective.
Now, though they may operate as two separate entities, their goal is singular, and now both entities will have a central location designed to specifically meet the needs of consumers here in the capital and around the country. On Monday, June 6th, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis and Economic Affairs Minister the Honorable Michael Halkitis, along with other dignitaries, cut the ribbon on brand new facilities to house the Consumer Protection Commission, or CPC, as well as the Consumer Affairs Unit.
What we decided to do was to give them their own standalone premises with a sign out front that says Consumer Affairs,
right,
so that the Bahamian public can be aware that there is a place to go if they have any issue in terms of the money they spend for goods and services. If they are dissatisfied, they don't have to take it or leave it. There's somewhere they can come to register a complaint, and hopefully there's a resolution.
Perhaps most familiar to the public is the Consumer Affairs Unit, or as it's often commonly referred to, the Price Control Unit. Their inspectors work on a daily basis to monitor the cost of items that are on the government's approved list of breadbasket items. Our team tagged along with Inspector Acharo Gator during one of his weekly inspections for a closer look at that process.
The government has given a certain threshold for merchants to, like profits, markup. And we are the ones to ensure that they're falling in line with that threshold.
Now, despite a popular misconception that price control inspectors are responsible for regulating the cost of all grocery items, Gator says only items on the government's approved list of breadbasket items fall under the purview of price control inspectors. This includes items like butter, cooking oil, corned beef, evaporated milk, flour, sugar, bread, most rice brands, baby cereal, and other frequently purchased items. The composition of that list, he says, harkens back to the 1971 introduction of the Price Control Act.
We have to bear in mind, and especially the consumer has to bear in mind, that when this act was put into place in 1971, it was keeping the poor man in mind, that they're able to afford to put a meal on the table to feed their families, okay?
Now, according to Gator, recommendations are being made to have new items added to the price control list. He says those decisions, however, can only be made by the government. For a closer look, I'm Arabina Apia. When we return, our conversation shifts to you, the consumer, and what you need to know to make sure you stay protected. Stay with us.
To find all things Bahamian, follow Born and Bred Bahamian on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and share on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, because this retains. Welcome back. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Arabina Apia. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Tonight, ACL comes to you live from the commissioning of a new space to house the Consumer Protection Commission and the Consumer Affairs Department. And we're delving into a critical aspect of consumer advocacy, and that is understanding the critical differences between those two bodies. While both organizations play vital roles in safeguarding consumer rights, they have distinct functions and areas of focus. When we return, our conversation shifts to you, the consumer, and what you must do to stay protected. Stay with us. More A Closer Look after this.
Spring has sprung at Grand Bahamas' happiest hotel. The Pelican Bay Resort is the perfect place to unwind and relax with family and friends. Come and check out our amazing views and our friendly staff, because there's no place better than Grand Bahamas' happiest hotel.
Welcome back. In today's modern world, consumers have rights that protect them from unfair practices, misleading information, and substandard products or services. Understanding these rights is key to making informed decisions and for advocating for one's own interests in the marketplace. Let's take a look. They say knowing is half the battle, and when it comes to consumer rights, this statement couldn't be truer. By arming themselves with knowledge and understanding of their rights, Bahamians can become empowered consumers capable of making informed decisions that protect them from unfair practices. Unfortunately, many Bahamians are not aware of their rights in the marketplace, leaving them vulnerable to possible exploitation. In fact, officials say a lack of awareness can lead to missed opportunities for redress and may perpetuate a cycle of consumer dissatisfaction. From issues like problematic store policies to minimum purchase requirements, Bahamian consumers are confronted with countless issues that can undermine their consumer experience and their rights. So, what recourse do you have if you find yourself experiencing a less than stellar consumer experience? Well, the first step is to engage the establishment or service provider in question.
Well, after you would have informed the merchant and given them opportunity to respond, if it's no response or if the response is not favorable, and I would encourage the public to notify us here at the CPC. You can call us 24/7 on our hotline, which is 357-7898, or you can simply go online at www.cpcbahamas.gov.ps.
That was Datus Farrington, manager of the Complaints and Investigations Unit at the Consumer Protection Commission. Since taking over the role in September of last year, he has been on a mission to overhaul the way consumer complaints are handled and walked us through the process of filing a complaint.
You know, in the past, I've seen cases linger in the records for almost a year. For whatever reason, I believe COVID may have contributed and the lockdowns, but I thought that to be very unacceptable. And I have my investigators every day in briefing, and we go over every case meticulously. We brainstorm and we figure out how to best resolve. And most of our resolutions come through just conversation. Have a conversation with the merchant, have a conversation with the consumer, get them at the table and have them come to a peaceful resolution. Most of our cases don't even need to go to court.
Now, while the CPC's mission is to have complaints resolved in as little as 2 weeks, an even greater focus is being placed on addressing gaps in consumer education. According to Operations and Education Manager Levade Darling, consumers can look forward to a number of education campaigns aimed at arming them with the knowledge they need to make more informed decisions.
For example, we have a major receipt and refund campaign ongoing now. And the reason for that campaign is because we realized that we had a plethora of complaints. There were persons who just wanted to take an item back, and then they run up to this obstacle called a store policy, right? And so it's important to explain to Bahamians that store policies are not law, right? The law is the Consumer Protection Commission Act of 2006, soon to be repealed by the Consumer Protection Act of 2023, right? And so when you see a store policy saying to you that you cannot get a refund, right? You cannot get an exchange. You have to accept a store credit. That is illegal, right? And that's why we have a major campaign ongoing now to educate consumers.
For a closer look, I'm Arabina Apia. Stay with us. We have more A Closer Look after this.
Have you ever purchased a defective item and was denied an exchange or cash refund? Contact the Consumer Protection Commission at 393-779-5-8 or our 24-hour complaints hotline at 357-7898 and let us help your voice be heard.
Hey, get up, stand up for your right.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've been having conversations on consumer protection, and now it's time to delve into the legal framework that underpins consumer protection here in the Bahamas. Understanding this legal foundation is essential in comprehending the rights afforded to consumers in the country. Let's take a closer look. Consumer protection legislation forms the backbone of efforts to safeguard consumers from unfair practices. These laws provide a strong framework that hold businesses accountable for their actions while promoting transparency and trust between buyers and sellers. Established back in 2006, the Consumer Act of the Bahamas was designed to offer recourse to individuals who find themselves disadvantaged by exorbitant prices, substandard products, or the unscrupulous behaviors of merchants and service providers. The law, in its current form, requires merchants and service providers to ensure that customers receive value for money and addresses concerns in the following areas. First, it provides protection from hazards to health and safety. It provides consumer education as well as avenues for effective redress of complaints. And finally, it encourages the formation of consumer groups to represent consumer views in matters of interest and decision-making. Now, while officials say the act has been effective in its current form, the government is working towards a repeal of the 2006 Act for a more modern and even more efficient iteration of the laws governing consumer rights and protections. In an exclusive interview with A Closer Look, Operations and Education Manager with the CPC, Levade Darling, foreshadowed some major changes in the pipeline.
One of the things that really struck me with the new legislation is the advisory notices. We have never been able to do that before. And what that means is that CPC will now be able to name prolific offenders. We haven't been able to do that before because we were concerned about the lawsuits. Now the law allows us to do that. Because we on the inside, we would know that this store or this entity has had numerous complaints against them, right? Numerous prolific offenders. We have not been able to actually name those complaints and warn consumers about that before. With the new legislation, we'll be able to do that with the advisory notices, and so that's a step in the right direction. The new legislation also speaks to the digital era and the digital space, right? And so we are pleased with that because we always felt and were of the view that the same protections that afforded somebody going into a store should be afforded you when you're shopping online, right? And so the new legislation speaks to that. So I'm sure that it stands up pretty well with international legislation. And we're looking forward to going through it with a fine-tooth comb once it's approved and gazetted and becomes law, and it would be our guiding rule and guide in terms of what we do and how we do it.
For A Closer Look, I'm Arabina Apia. Stay with us. More A Closer Look after this.
Spring has sprung at Grand Bahamas' happiest hotel. The Pelican Bay Resort is the perfect place to unwind and relax with family and friends. Come and check out our amazing views and our friendly staff, because there's no place better than Grand Bahamas' happiest hotel.
Joining me now is the Minister of Economic Affairs, the Honorable Michael Halkitis. Minister Halkitis, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about consumer affairs, consumer protection.
Yes.
Give us an idea of what the government's objectives are. What are your plans for, actually protecting the rights of consumers?
Well, we are coming in. One of the main challenges facing the administration was things like the cost of living. And whereas over the years and in our initial budgets, we brought some relief to consumers in terms of dropping customs duties with a view to see some price decreases, we realized that not all of these efforts were being felt by the consumer. I should add that during the previous administration, Consumer Affairs Price Control, Consumer Protection came under the Ministry of Labor. And so now they're under the Ministry of Economic Affairs. They were sharing space with the Department of Labor. And so we decided that as a demonstration of our seriousness and our commitment to consumer protection, we should establish them in their own space. The public can see a separate building dedicated to consumer affairs, so when they have issues and they want to walk in terms of anything to do with price control, rent control, consumer protection, they can come into these offices. What we also did was we made a commitment to increase the resources available to the Consumer Affairs Department. So we have increased the number of price inspectors in New Providence as well as in the Family Islands. Earlier this year, we had consumer affairs officers from throughout the country come to Nassau to undergo training in terms of the legislation, in terms of the practice, in terms of the calculations. And so it demonstrates our commitment to bringing the resources so that those individuals involved in consumer protection, which includes price control, rent control, and consumer protection in terms of consumers who have difficulty when they purchase services and they need somewhere to lodge a complaint. We felt that they needed to be properly resourced, and that would indicate to the public that this is not just another department somewhere in name, but an actual department. They can see their physical location. They feel comfortable when they come in and lodge a complaint that it would be dealt with.
Mm-hmm. You've spoken about the government's commitment. Can you, in your opinion, give me an assessment of, the current state of consumer affairs and protection? And are there any specific areas that you'd like to see addressed?
I think there's a greater need for education so that members of the public know that should they have some difficulty in purchasing goods or services, any services that they get, that they know that there is a government agency that they can go to that will take the complaint and follow up the complaint and resolve the complaint. And so I think it's just a matter of educating the public, and that's a part of what we're doing here today and part of this initiative to set up a separate location so that individuals might know that, listen, there is a government agency that I can go to, so they don't have to be frustrated. They don't just have to take it or leave it, all right? And so there's education that needs to be done, and that will be ongoing. And I think, it's also our intent to move more of our complaints and our complaint resolution online. So again, it makes it easier. Those who want to come in, they can come in. There's ample space, there's ample parking, but a lot of the complaints will be received and resolved online. So I think as there's a greater appreciation that there are avenues in terms of consumer protection, but we have to continue to educate individuals.
I love that you brought up the point of education, because I found that many Bahamians really are not aware of what their rights are. So how are you working with the Consumer Protection Commission? How are we working with other maybe private agencies and bodies? What does that look like in terms of collaboration, both locally and maybe regionally and internationally as well?
Yes. So what we're doing is, as I said, we have increased the resources that they have available. That includes human resources in terms of technology. Previously, price inspectors would go out and they would have these huge books, and they would be flipping through the books to check the prices. It might seem like a simple thing, but now they're using tablets to do that. We are intent on establishing, we've already begun to establish a research department so that we can more accurately verify information that's coming into the department in terms of what goods cost, etc. And we intend to continue the education in terms of public outreach and in the media, talk shows, etc. And we have a good working relationship with the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation. And what we want to do is, I have indicated that we do not want so much an adversarial relationship between consumer affairs and the business community. Ideally, we want to be working together because, if we have a happy consumer, that's a repeat customer. And so we want to also be a resource to businesses who might, not be totally aware of what the law and the requirements are, where they can come in and get advice from us. On the agenda of the Parliament is a new Consumer Protection Act, which will be, all-encompassing, again, increasing protections for consumers. As we get to the point where we debate that will again provide us a platform.
For you to tell us why consumer protection is so important, how that fits into the success and the overall economy.
It's very, very important because, all over the world people are talking about inflation and the cost of living, and when people work hard for their money, they want to know that when they go to a store or they go into a business to get a service, that they get value for money. And they want to know that if they feel aggrieved or if they feel that they are not getting value for money, there's an avenue. It's not just, you go away grumbling and dissatisfied. There's an avenue. If you feel you're aggrieved, you can go and get a resolution. And if not, a resolution in your favor, an education as to, future consumption. So it's important because, when people they work hard for their money, they're spending their money, they want to be sure that they're getting quality service and their value for money. And it goes towards justice and natural justice as well. You don't want, particularly what we call the proverbial small man, to feel that he has no chance. He might be doing some business with a large business and he feels aggrieved. And we don't want Bahamians to walk away feeling, I have no chance. It's just take it or leave it. There is a government agency where you can come to present your complaint and get some assistance in resolving it, or some education in how to avoid that circumstance in the future.
Well, Minister, I want to thank you so much for being here, for answering these questions. And I know that, Bahamians are going to be excited to know that they have recourse in this way.
Thank you very much.
We'll have more of a closer look in just a moment.
To find all things Bahamian, follow Born and Bred Bahamian on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and share on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, because this retains.
When consumers face challenges or have concerns, the CPC is there to offer guidance, support, and a possible resolution. They empower individuals by educating them about their rights, helping them make informed decisions, and stepping in when disputes arise. They serve as a vital resource, bringing consumer and provider together to find equitable solutions. In our rapidly evolving digital landscape, consumer protection faces new challenges. With the rise of e-commerce, online scams, and data breaches, protecting consumer privacy and ensuring the security of online transactions have become critical priorities. Consumer protection is not merely a shield, however. It is an empowering force that instills confidence in the buyer, enabling them to make informed choices, exercise their rights, and shape the marketplace through their demands. We hope that this new building, these new operations, will give Bahamians across the country the opportunity to do just that. Till next time, Bahamas, I'm Arabina Apia. Good night, everyone.